Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all about parenting and communications and child rearing. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the power of modesty. In this video, we're going to be talking about what modesty really is and if it relates to more than clothing, which it does. We're going to talk about why children care about modesty and why parents should care about modesty too. And then I'm going to be talking about some simple ways that you can teach your children modesty. The word modesty means that someone behaves in a way that is unassuming or moderate, where they're limited in the things that they say or in the way that they dress. So this means that when a person is modest, they would present not just their appearance, but their ideas in a way that would be decent and appropriate and respectful to other people. Modesty is actually something that is the hallmark of a great influencer or leader, and is something that usually draws the attention of other people because it is different. In fact, there was a time when a neighbor said to me, "Nicholeen, you speak differently. Where I'm from, people say certain words all the time without ever even thinking about it. But when you speak, you don't say those same kinds of cuss words. There's something different, more refined in the way that you speak, and I like that. In fact, I'm trying to do that too." My modesty of speech actually created a ripple effect for my neighbor who wanted to improve her speech too. What my neighbor didn't know was that my dad raised me with a rule of thumb that went like this: master your mother tongue, and you will make a mark upon the world that will be noticed. So I felt that statement was true, and I wanted to master my mother tongue. I realized that meant I needed to refine my mother tongue. I needed to use words that would always be respectful, appropriate, and properly get my message across to other people. Thank you, Dad, so that I could develop some modesty of speech. And thank you, Mom, for helping me develop modesty in other ways. So why do children care about modesty? I think sometimes parents are a little surprised that their young children will start caring about modesty of dress and even modesty of speech. So there's a time that just developmentally happens where young children, when they hit about the age of 5 or 6, they'll start to have a sense of modesty that they didn't have before when they were running around without a diaper and you were trying to catch them to put their clothes on. All of a sudden, they realize they want to keep their bodies protected and private, and they feel very uncomfortable if somebody crosses over that boundary line. Well, this is a normal developmental thing for most people unless they are groomed to not develop that sense of modesty. So what we need to recognize here is that this is actually a safety mechanism that all people end up utilizing when they are young, and usually it carries on. So when a child has a sense of modesty, or that their boundaries associated with modesty of dress, things that have to do with their body and who gets to see or touch their body, when those things are respected, then that child feels safe. So when a child knows that their brother or their sister or somebody saw them without a shirt on, when you might think it's not a big deal, there's nothing there, they actually feel like it is a very big deal because subconsciously they're wanting to keep themselves safe. And in our world where everyone is over-sexualized and there is a sexual attack, really an assault on our children, we really can benefit by using this natural cue that our children have to keep them safe from predators. So if we teach them, yes, this modesty is good, this modesty is healthy, and we buy them things to cover their body that actually show them that we honor that feeling of safety that they have on the inside, then this is going to be a step in the direction of keeping them safe sexually from people who might want to exploit them or take advantage. Also, children of all ages feel respected when people engage with them in modest ways. So when someone uses modesty of speech, not only do they feel safe and not attacked, but they feel respected also by the person that's talking to them. When parents are calm in the way that they talk to their children and don't use explosive language, language, then a bond and a connection can occur so that teaching can happen instead of that disconnection that occurs when people start emotionally dumping on somebody else, which oftentimes feels abusive. So modesty of speech and behavior, as well as modesty of clothes, are all things that are developmentally appropriate for children, especially at certain ages of development where they hit times where those things matter more to them. But also, these are things that help them feel like they can be safe in their world, they can be understood, and they can be respected. Before I go on to the simple ways that you can teach your children modesty, leave me a comment. What did you learn about modesty when you were young, and how did it benefit you or maybe even hurt you? Because I think we all have different experiences with modesty. I know that when I was on the BBC program, The World's Strictest Parents, and I was talking about the modesty that our family had, people were very critical of the fact that I would teach modesty to my children, but we decided in our family it was appropriate. I know in some families it feels appropriate, and that blesses people when they grow up, and then in other families, maybe they felt like they missed some lessons in modesty that they wished they would have had. Leave me a comment, let me know your experience. So here are some simple ways that you can teach your children modesty. Probably the most simple, okay, well maybe that's debatable depending on what your history is your example. However you speak, however you behave around other people, however you dress, is going to show your child that that's the standard that they want to meet, especially when they are little. Children look up to their parents when they're little unless they've had more exposure to other people or other sources that would bring in a totally different culture, like pop culture. So your family culture and the way you dress and behave and speak in your family are going to be the number one influence in that child's life, especially when they are young and they haven't seen that much of the world. So make sure that your example is setting an example of modesty, because that's going to make them feel comfortable. It's also going to give you more peace of mind to know that they feel so respected and safe. This next tip is definitely more appropriate for small children. But when you're teaching small children about their bodies, usually this is when you're going to be teaching them about modesty, right? These boundaries that they need to observe for their bodies. Now, when I did foster care for treatment children, so I brought in youth ages 12 to 18 in my home, and many of them had been sexually abused or had sexual pasts. And so I knew that I needed to keep my toddlers safe, which meant that when my children were quite young, I had to start talking to them about their boundaries, their body, what could happen to their body and not, so that they could help keep themselves safe. Even though I was going to also be doing my very best to set up boundaries for those foster children so that my children would stay safe as well. So number one, I told them their whole bodies were special. Their whole bodies were just for them, and that those bodies should not be used by somebody else, that somebody should not be touching or doing something to their body or looking at their body in a way where they would start thinking the wrong kinds of things about them. So I told them there were certain parts of their body that we called their special body parts. And these special body parts were parts we always wanted to keep covered up so that we would make sure that nobody ever did anything to those special body parts that would maybe put us in danger. Now, obviously, I didn't want to make my children feel afraid. Use a lot of parent intuition as you're talking about this, but we also want to make sure that you hit home enough that they know it is important that I keep myself covered up. So truly, when a person behaves in a modest way, they actually are closing that door to a lot of the objectification of people that can happen in our sexual culture. We really are seeing the sexual culture and the sexualizing of even young children on the increase, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that people are speaking and moving and dressing in more sexual ways and not realizing that this actually objectifies them them to somebody else. So I didn't want my children to ever be in that position of objectification. So I made sure that they always knew that there were certain rules. And we said certain things in our family as they were growing and learning that they could use as a rule of thumb. So we would put our hand right here and say, you know, when we put our hand at our neck, we want our shirts to always go like here or above, right? So we don't want to be showing that part of our body. So we would put our hand down on our leg and say, you know, at our knee and say, we don't want our pants to be going too much higher than this, right? Because we don't want to be showing off more things that lead to all of a sudden sexual stimulation of somebody else. So thinking in terms of different little gauges or boundaries you can give your children, so when you're picking things out of the store, they can also know when they look at something, oh, that's a no, that's going to go way too low, or that's going to be falling off, or something like that. And they'll know they don't want to pick that either. And then it becomes a non-issue. Another thing that we did in our family is we created what is called a family standard. The family standard is a document that I talk about in my book, Parenting a House United. And in fact, you can see an example of our family standard. You definitely don't have to pick every standard we've picked for our family. They could give you an idea of all the different things related to speech, clothing, health and nutrition, as well as social conduct, digital devices, all of those kinds of things, and the media, you know, things that are going to be affecting our family. We wanted to make standards for those things. So in that family standard document, our family put together our list of do's and don'ts related to all of those areas, and one of those areas was modesty. My husband and I created this document when we were bringing foster children into our home because we knew that they would have different rules in their house about modesty and about propriety. We wanted to make sure that the family would fit together, even though they would probably have to adjust when they came to our house. But this would give them a gauge to follow while they were in our home receiving treatment, so that we could all be a unified group. Anyway, this is a document that honestly has saved us so many times. So if your child says something like, I want to dye my hair such and such color, but your family has decided that it's not very moderate or limiting to have your hair dyed bright pink or something, okay? Maybe your family has decided that we're going to have modesty of hair color. Well, then you can say, well, our family standard says that we're not going to dye our hair colors that are unnatural, right? Because those would not be things that are very moderate or have modesty, which is what we want to have for our family. Now, I know some people might laugh at that because they're like, I totally don't care about that. And that's fine. You have to decide what is moderate, limiting, or is modest for your family, and that's what you're going to be putting in your document. When I work with youth and I talk to them about modesty, then what I do is I talk to them about marketing, okay? And I say every one of us are marketing or selling something to somebody else. In fact, one of the things that all of us want on the inside is to have a positive impact on the world. We want to do something good for somebody else or help somebody come to a better place just because we were there at the right time. Well, we are not only selling those good things, but we can also be selling distractions or messages that maybe we don't even know that we're selling based upon the way that we communicate to other people and the way that we dress, because obviously there's verbal communication and there's nonverbal communication. So I tell people everyone's selling something. Everyone's selling a way of life or certain truths or principles that they believe and hold on to. So what are you selling? Now, sometimes what we want to be selling or promoting in the world as a good message or a good something doesn't actually match our speech or doesn't actually match the way that we are dressing our body. So we've got to put those two things together. There was a person that was getting some mentoring from me years ago, and he said, I said, what do you want to do as far as your mission in life? You know, where do you think that you're headed? And he thought for a minute. He said, I don't 100% know, but I kind of would like to be in a band. And I thought, okay, so you like music? He says, yes, I like music. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do in your band? Like, what do you want your band to produce? Because if it's just for you, then it's not really a mission. But if it's really something to benefit the world in some way, to bring them to a better place, then it could be actually a mission. And he thought for a second and he said, well, actually, I want everything I do to bring people closer to goodness or to God. And I said, okay, then the way that your band dresses, the tone with which you actually produce your music, the lyrics to the songs are going to have to be different than the bands who are creating music for a distraction or just to get people pumped up or something like that. And when he thought about that, I could see him go, wait a minute, I like the stuff that's a distraction or getting people pumped up. And you're right, that doesn't bring me any closer to God. So what is the purpose of that? All of a sudden he was going into his own head and he realized, what I want to sell and what I kind of like don't match. So I'm going to have to adjust what I like in order for it to match the message I want to give to the world. And I think a lot of young people get confused in that area. And if we can just tell them, if you are selling something and you know what you want to sell to the world, make sure that your modesty of speech, your modesty of dress is a match to those things. It's been really fun talking about modesty. What people usually like to hear most from me is stuff about calmness. And I have a gift for you. Since you stayed all the way to the end of this video, I would like to give you for free a mini course that is called the Calm Parenting Toolkit. There is a link in the description below this video to the Calm Parenting Toolkit. It says teach self-gov/toolkit or something like that. Find the one that says toolkit in it, click that, and you can have my Calm Parenting Toolkit for free. I'll see you there.